All right. Still not working. Okay. Is that working? All right, everyone. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. It seems like we are might be having some buffering problems. Yeah. Okay. Yep, so it does seem like we're having some problems with the video buffering. Not good. Okay. Okay. I mean, this says that it's streaming well enough. Okay. I'm gonna do our best. I'm gonna try to get in contact with some students. Okay. All right. So I'm really not sure if this is actually not great. I'm going to hop on YouTube. All right. So we're just gonna go for it. I don't know if this is really going to work. Okay. Seems like I have a good internet connection. The bit rate's pretty high. We're just gonna give it a shot. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the live chat. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to just start going through some of these questions. Hopefully you're able to hear and see everything that's going on. Okay, so I'm just going to start at the first question on the level 2 practice of, this is day 3. So we're going to start working on day 3, level 2. Okay. So this first question says, the following right prism has trapezoidal base regions. So basically what we're saying is this trapezoid and this congruent trapezoid, these are my bases, right? So here's a plane, and here are lines connecting them, right? And the important part of us realizing that is that the trapezoid is the base, and the height is going to be this length here, right? This is the height of the of the prism itself rather than the trapezoid, right? So we've got the height of the trapezoid, which is going to be something like that, right? And then we've also got the length of the base. So we know that BF, which is the height of the entire prism, is 10. We know that AB is 8. We know that DC is 5. And we know that the height of the base is 3.7. Okay, so this is pretty important because what we need to do is find the area of the base, right? Which is a trapezoid. So that's going to be 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. So once we get that area, then we can multiply it by the height of the entire thing and we can get the volume, right? But this H is talking about the height of the trapezoid, right? I'll make 5 my base 1, I'll make 8 my base 2. So then when I plug into my formula, I get 1/2 times the height, which is 3.7, times base 1 plus base 2. So base 1 is 5, base 2 is 8. Now I can put this into my calculator like this, or I can just do the math by hand, right? So I could say area is equal to 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5 times 3.7 times 13. That's much easier to put into my calculator. Give me just a second and I'll do that. Okay, and I get 24.05. And that is my final answer for this first. Oh, it's not my final answer. I'm so sorry. That's the area of the base, right? But then what I have to do is I take the area of the base times the height of the prism, which in this case is 10, right? That's the height of the prism. So I do 24.05 times 10, and I get 240.5 is my volume. So that is my answer, 240.5. I'm going to leave this here for just a moment. I'm still having some problems with this stream, so I'm going to see very quickly whether it's working or not. Oh, hey, Nishan. Nishan, thank you for coming. Are you able to both see what I'm doing on the screen and hear what I'm saying? On my end, what I'm seeing for my analytics of this stream is that the health of the stream is really poor, which means basically YouTube is telling me that the stream isn't working well. So I'm just wondering whether you can like actually see and hear everything that's going on. I'm actually going to make this public instead of unlisted. And then hopefully I can pull it up on my phone to kind of keep track of everything. You should also know that there's like a 30-second delay or so, which changes a little bit of like how we can communicate for sure. All right. Okay, you can see. And if you answered that question, it means you can also hear me, which is awesome. Wow. Okay, this is good. So, Nishan, I just went through this problem really quickly. Problem number 1, is that one that you would like me to go over step by step with you? Or would you like me to move on to a different problem? Which one would you like us to do? Oh. You get to pick, because you're the only person here right now, as far as I can see. So. All right. You can pick a question. I'm going to wait until you pick one, and I'm going to try to pull up on here. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Have it live right here. Okay, the next problem, so problem number 2. All right, let's do it. Now, when I was going through problem number 1, I kind of got into number 2's space, so I'm going to have to erase this part, but just keep in mind that you are able to like go back in the video if you need to see that bit, right? And I'm going to leave this video up even though it was kind of a difficult start, so if you needed to rewatch this and try again, you could totally do that. All right, so let's look at number 2. It says the base of the right cylinder. And remember that a right cylinder just means that if I connect the top and the bottom, it makes a right angle, right? It means that we're not slanted. It's straight up and down. Can we go in order? Certainly, Naishan, for sure. All right, so the radius is 5, and our height is 8. And it's asking us what is the area of the base and what is the volume. Okay. So before we get into like what is the area of the base, why don't we actually draw the base, right? We did a lot of problems in the practice level 1, which Naishan, I know you did really well on, where we were matching up what the shape is with the cylinder that matched it, right? So let's do that here. So if I look at this cylinder or this 3-dimensional shape here, I know that the base is a circle, right? So if the base is a circle, we just need to find the area of that circle. Now we know that the radius is 5 here. So if the radius is 5, we need to think about what is the area of a circle. Now I'm going to pause for just a minute. I'm going to give you a second to think about how do I find the area of a circle. Okay, I'm just going to give us a minute to think about that. Okay, so the area of a circle, hopefully when you were thinking about this, you were remembering some of the things that we did in class, right? The area of a circle is pi r squared, right? Where r is our radius, which is 5, right? And pi is the number pi, which is 3.14. Okay, so if I plug 5 in, I get area is equal to 3.14 times 5 squared. Okay, so 3.14 times 5 squared, we get, well, 5 squared is 25. Oh, I'm running out of space. So we need to do 3.14 times 25. Now I need to get out my calculator to do this. It'll take me a minute. So you can also get out your calculator or your phone or whatever you'd like to use. And 3.14 times 25. Oh, I should close that parenthesis. I get, hopefully you got the same thing. I got 78.5. So remember, this is the area of the base, right? And the base is like the shape on the bottom and top. Right? So the area of our circle is 78.5. Now to actually get the volume, right, to say, okay, I have the area of my base. Now I'm going to work on the volume of my shape. I take the area of my base and I multiply it by the height of my shape, right? So here's my height. My height is 8. So to get the volume, I take the area and I multiply by the height. So the area is 78.5. I multiply by 8. And I get 628. So, yeah. Now we don't really have a unit here, right? But if we did have a unit, like let's say all of this was inches, because we're multiplying 3 things in both of the situations, this would be inches cubed, because that's what we use for 3 dimensions. And this one would be inches squared, because that's what we use in 2 dimensions. So Nishan, I don't want to move on unless you understand what we just did. So I'm just going to pause here, and you can either put in a comment that says, go on to the next one, or if you have any questions about what we did, you can ask me a question. And I did each section in a different color. So if you had a question about a specific section of what I was working on, so either the area at the bottom, or solving for the area of the base, or solving for the volume, you can just ask me to go over a specific color again. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute to think about whether you have any questions and let me know. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Nishan. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, so number 3 says, here, I'll erase these bits here as well. A right prism has a base area of 5 and a volume of 30. Find the prism's height, which is h. So this is based on that idea that I had just written down. I think it was in blue, that volume is the area of the base times the height, right? So what this is telling us is the volume is, I just went right over top of that. Why don't we just erase that? Right. So our volume is 30, right? So 30 is equal to the area of our base is 5. And then we're trying to figure out what's the height. So the question here is, what number am I going to multiply the 5 by to get to 30, right? What height will give me 30? I'm going to give you a minute to figure that out, Nishan. And you can go ahead and type your thoughts into the comments. Okay. Say that again? Sure. So what we are thinking about is, what number am I going to multiply by 5 to get 30, right? So 5 times what is equal to 30? That's the question. 5 times what is equal to 30? What number should I put into that blank space? Six, exactly. You are exactly right. And that means that 6 is the height, so the answer to number 3 is 6. That's your answer. Yep, you got it. You figured it out. That's awesome, Nayshawn. Now, Nayshawn, I do have one more quick question for you. So, the next 2 questions, 4 and 5, are kind of bonus extension questions. Do you want to do those bonus questions, or do you want to move on to the questions in for day 4? Which one would you prefer? Ooh. What just happened? Oh, this is giving me some problems. I have perpetual problems with this app. It's the best one I've found to do what I want it to do. And on the whole, it works pretty well. But sometimes it gives me some problems, which is incredibly frustrating. Yeah. All right. And Nayshawn, I hope that you and your mom are doing well. I hope that if anyone else watches this back, that your families are doing well, all of those things. There is a pretty significant lag in between what I say and when you hear it. I think it's about 30 seconds or so. So maybe even a little bit more, depending on how good my internet connection is and how good your internet connection is. So it's all a big kerfuffle for sure. And it looks like we do have, oh, I think that other concurrent viewer might be me. I think it might be, yeah, I think it's probably me watching, but, goodness. Do you think you need to do them? Okay, so, for those bonus questions, I think that they're really good to think about, but they're not going to, like, if you don't do them, it's not going to make your grade lower. Thank you. Thanks for the thoughts. Yeah, so it's, like, we can totally think about them and do them. Why don't I, like, set up the thinking for you, and then you can think about them on your own and see if you make any progress. And if you don't, it's no big deal. I'll kind of set them up for you, but we won't go the whole way through it. Okay? All right. So number 4, this is saying a cross-section is taken parallel to the bases of a general cylinder. So a general cylinder just means that we've got like some weird funky shape, right? So I'm going to make that my shape. Okay, so that's the shape I'm going to use. Here we go. Right? There we go. There's my shape. It's a pretty bad drawing. My apologies. But what it's saying is we take a cross section that's parallel to the bases. And when we say parallel to the bases, that does mean that it's a true cross section. It's not just a general slice. So when we take that cross section, right? It's like we're taking this green section here. And that green section is congruent to, it's a perfect copy as what's above and what's below. So if this green section has an area of 18, right, that means that the top has an area of 18 and the bottom also has an area of 18, right? So what this is saying is that our bases have an area of 18. So it's asking if the height is just this general variable h, what is the volume going to be, right? The volume is going to be 18 times something, okay? And that something, it could be a variable, it could be a number, right? So that's what it's asking, is what is the volume? If I know that the area of my base is 18 and my height is h, what do you know about the volume? Okay. For number 5, it says a general cylinder has a volume of 144. What is one possible set of dimensions of the base and height of the cylinder if all cross sections parallel to its bases are rectangles or right triangles? So the idea here is that it's saying the volume is equal to 144. And if I have rectangles, right? If I have, okay. So if this is my shape, right? If this is my box, what numbers could I make my length and my width and my height to where it will be equal to 144? That's the big question here, right? So if I think about that, why don't I just pick a number to make one of them and then we'll figure out the rest of it, right? So if my height, for example, is, I could make my height 12 because 12 goes into 144, right? That would mean that my volume is equal to my area, the area of the base, times 12. And I know that my volume is 144. So this is, okay, so if my height is 12, that means that my area is going to also be 12, right? Because 12 times 12 is 144. So if I'm filling in this blank space, right, what times 12 is 144? The answer is 12 times 12 is 144. Okay, so then I have to think to myself, okay, what two numbers, what length and width could I make multiply to be 12? And I could say, oh, if my length is 3 and if my width is 4, then 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 12 is 144. That means that my volume is 144. Okay, so basically what it's asking you to do is figure out what numbers you could use to make this volume 144. So we actually just did the rectangle one, right? If we do length is 3, width is 4, and I'm going to erase this, and height is 12, that works, okay? So if this was a right triangle instead, what would you do? Right, so you can think about the second part on your own since we did the first part together. All right, I do want to make sure we're about halfway through our time, so I think it's probably a good idea if we move on to the day 4 problems. If we get done with the day 4 problems early, and you have questions about the day 3 problems, or if you want to go back to the bonuses, let me know, and then we can do that. Okay, all right. I'm gonna hope that I can move that up there. I'd like to be able to move this paper. This paper is causing me some grief. I'm sorry, just a moment. Oh, did it work? No, it did not. Okay, what if I just try to move here? zoom out. Sorry. Like I said, this app gives me a little bit of grief, and I actually think my tablet is overheating a little bit, which makes it a little bit more difficult for everything to work the way it's supposed to. All right. Okay. All right. This is giving me grief, so I'm just going to have to delete this page. Like I said earlier, if you still need to see it, you can hop back earlier on the video and you should be able to see it then. So I'm just going to throw that page out. And let's work on these day 4 problems. Okay. So looking here, it says find the volume of the following 3-dimensional shapes, right? Let's do an example of a cone, then let's do an example of a pyramid, and then we'll move on to some of the bonus questions. Okay. So our directions here say find the volume of the 3-dimensional shapes. So let's look at what is the volume of, oh, it keeps stopping. I think it has something to do with my internet access. All right. Yeah, it does seem kind of stuck, doesn't it? Because I've definitely moved since then. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not going very smoothly, is it? Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is very far behind and very much not working quite right. I'm gonna check. My screen might look really weird for a minute. Oh, I have something to do with. Why don't we turn that down? There we go. Maybe that'll help us. When is the next coach class? I will be available Monday 2 o'clock.